Hello everybody, and welcome to the first video of 2026. Took me long enough. We're kicking off the fantasy fight series. Plenty to talk about and there's plenty to fantasize about. No diddy. Today I want to start off with the two most unwanted heavyweight champions in history, Jack Johnson and Sonny Liston. I think this is a great place to start because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about both guys, and I don't think they're properly remembered for their styles. I think they're more remembered for their attitudes or the public perceptions about them. And I guess before I really get into the meat and bones of this specific matchup, it's important to remember that in these fantasy fights, I'm looking to compare the guys fighting in their primes against each other. Because we're doing that, the factors of motivation and longevity don't really come into effect. Those aren't really things that I'm trying to, it's not a direct comparison. So with that out the way, I think with Sonny Liston, it's pretty widely accepted that his prime would have been in the Patterson fights. Had some turbulence to overcome early on, which Jack Johnson did as well. He had a long career, fought his way up, like all the old battlers did. I think that Johnson primed probably around 1906 leading up to his fight with Burns and Jeffries, but those guys had no chance. So there's not much to judge him on, to be honest. To keep it simple, when both guys became world champion was when they were at their best. Physically comparing these men, they both stood 6'1", but Sonny was blessed with a ridiculous wingspan. 84 inches. He had Mr. Fantastic arms, was probably a little bit bigger. Jack Johnson fluctuated in weight quite a lot throughout his career, and you saw through Johnson's career he was always able to bulk up more when he was fighting bigger guys. But I do feel like Sonny was probably a little bit bigger. The biggest misconception when it comes to these two guys, in my opinion, is Jack Johnson being remembered as a physical, aggressive fighter. Maybe most people don't remember him that way, but I definitely get the impression that people remember him as like a marauder, as a very physical, aggressive fighter. It's actually quite the opposite. Jack Johnson, although a physically gifted fighter, was very, very methodical. He was a defensive first, movement-based counterpuncher. If I had to try and put him in a box, he relied on out-moving, out-positioning, wearing guys down in the clinch, frustrating guys. There are so many instances throughout his career of him being lackadaisical, not pressing the action, crowd booing, his corner yelling at him, the referee warning him. He didn't care. The thing about him, and the thing about pretty much all of the first great black fighters, from Joe Gans to Walcott, Peter Jackson, Jack Johnson, all these guys were very elusive. They were all very technical boxers. And in all of those cases, those guys are remembered for their physicality, for their bruteness, and that just isn't a fair assessment at all. Now, Sonny, on the other hand, that's exactly what he was. Now, he was not dumb, and that's the misconception with Sonny. Maybe he could have used that 84-inch reach a little bit more. He liked to get on top of guys and club them with both hands. That's what he liked to do. He was a very physical, aggressive, strong fighter. But still, even Sonny, especially when he had somebody dangerous in front of him, he didn't just bull in through the front door. He always picked his spots. He always had good timing. He always picked his punches well. Getting into the head-to-head matchup, every fight starts at distance, so that's where we're going to start. Sonny coming in with a 10-inch reach advantage. That's very hard to overcome, and although Johnson was very, very deceptive on the outside, he wasn't ever super aggressive down the middle. He liked to use frames and clinch work and let guys really fall into him. Now, Sonny did have a tendency to fall into his shots, but at the distance, with that powerful jab that he had, with the 10-inch reach advantage, if this fight stayed at distance all night, you'd have to believe that Sonny was comfortable. When it gets to the mid-range, I actually think this is where Sonny is most dangerous. He was big and he was long, so he needed the space to let off with both hands, which is what he liked to do. And when he was at that mid-range, that's exactly what he could do. When he was able to get that touch with his left hand, drop that big right, it was trouble. And standing and trading with Sonny Liston was just hell. Not the way to do it. Again, Johnson was not a meet you head on kind of fighter. So in this case, Johnson would probably be looking to clinch or evade or sneak in a counter and get out. When it gets to that real close range, that really is a lot of the time where Sonny wanted to be. He wanted to be pressed up against you. No diddy. He wanted to push you back, get both hands underneath, and rip to your body into your head with lefts and rights. But Johnson was no slouch. Johnson trained for this. He liked guys coming in on him. He was exceptional in the clinch. He was exceptional at tying guys up, at wrist and hand control, at creating angles and space for himself. And this is where I think the temperament of both guys might start to really come into the fight, because Jack Johnson was always the master. He was never bewildered. He was never frustrated. He was always relaxed, sometimes too relaxed. Sonny, exact opposite. Frustrated, angry, pent up, looking to cause serious harm to his opponent. I don't think Johnson cared about that kind of shit, to be honest with you. And I don't think Liston could help himself a lot of the time. And a guy constantly tying you up, holding your wrists, turning you on the ropes, that's not only going to wear Sonny down, who's going to be so much more tense and built up, looking to get free with both hands in the clinch. Johnson was physical too. He wasn't any slouch. So I think that the clinch in this matchup is actually a serious, dangerous place for both guys, because if Sonny can get free with both hands and start unloading on Johnson, that's going to be trouble. But Sonny cannot stay in the clinch for long with Johnson, because he is going to get tied up, he's going to get spun around, and he's going to get unloaded on. Different era we're comparing, and I definitely should have emphasized this earlier. Totally forgot. 15 rounds. Johnson fought a lot of 20-round fights, came more from a 20-round era. Liston did come from a 15-fight era, but he only went 12 rounds one time. Never went the distance in a championship fight. So endurance, conditioning is a big deal in this matchup. It's inevitable. I don't want to bring the resume, the longevity, the experience of the guys into the equation too much, but it's hard to ignore when that's the case. So when it comes to conditioning, that has to be noted. Liston was a very fast starter. He was very explosive, but against the best opposition, if he wasn't going to get you out of there early, then he probably wasn't going to get you out of there. There was a lot of speculation throughout his career on his age. Some people were thinking that he was born as early as 1919. Others believe in the public records of about 1932. His conditioning was definitely a question, and although I think his conditioning was pretty good in his prime, most of his fights just didn't go that long. And it was more about the mental frustration of being in there time and time again, getting used to it. Johnson lived that. He was the master through 20 rounds time and time again. Liston wasn't, and Johnson, being more of a methodical fighter, he tended to get stronger and more dangerous as the fight progressed. When it comes to hand speed, I think that it's a pretty close race, but I do give Johnson the edge. And a lot of that, again, comes down to the looseness of Johnson. Johnson flowed with his combinations and picked his punches very well. Sonny, a lot of the time, lacked a setup punch, and he liked to throw everything hard, like 2 wrecking balls with both his hands. So that slows you down, and it makes the punches easier to see. And when it comes to feet, I mean, most of that is technique, but Johnson's footwork was so superior. He was so elusive and fast with his shuffles, in and out, side to side, just a beautiful mover for any standard of the game. And his punches thudded. Johnson's punches were tighter, they were shorter, and they had a lot of snap to them. Definitely weren't the crushers like Liston's, but very snappy, heavy punches. Definitely give Johnson the edge in speed, but when it comes to power, you have to give it to Liston. Durability. I like this one because I think it's really hard to say. I don't think that either of these guys are vulnerable. Looking back, I think maybe some people question Liston's chin a little bit, maybe even Johnson's too. Both these guys were well conditioned. Both these guys could take it to the body. I never saw either of them hurt to the body, although Liston was certainly more susceptible to being broken down. At the end of the day, with the way that these styles come together, I think that both of these guys could hurt each other. If Liston is able to get off with his lead hand, blinds you with his lead hand, and drop that big right, get you on the ropes, get off with both hands, he's gonna hurt you. It doesn't really matter if you're Muhammad Ali, Alexander Usyk, or Jack Johnson. It's about not getting put in that position. And when it comes to Johnson, he can hit very well, and his effectiveness from hitting doesn't come from power. It doesn't have to. It comes from his balance, his positioning, getting his opponent off balance, catching them with punches from underneath that they don't see. So I think that both these guys can hurt each other, but I don't think either of them are vulnerable. I have to say this is a draw. Offense and defense, this one kind of writes itself. That's kind of the matchup. Offense, Sonny Liston versus defense, Jack Johnson. You have to give Sonny the edge. His shot selection was beautiful, and his whole game plan was offense. Unfortunately, that can be your weakness too. That did make him a little bit one-dimensional, did make him a little bit over-reliant on his jab, on his lead hand, and he was certainly never as dynamic as Johnson. He was a defensive fighter to the highest regard. He could parry, he could counter, he could hand fight, he could fight at any distance, he could slow the pace, he could speed it up, he could hurt you with either hand, had a beautiful in and out game. So Jack Johnson all the way. Offense, Sonny Liston. Defense, Jack Johnson. No question. Last category, IQ/ring generalship. Going back to what I mentioned on the conditioning point, if Liston was going to get you, it was going to be early. And although that's the case, that wasn't all to do with cardio. A lot of that's to do with his style. Like we've covered, he was kind of a brute. I certainly wouldn't call him a plotter, but he did have an over-reliance on his lead hand. He did have a one-dimensional style. So if you were going to fight him, he was going to break you down. And if he was able to figure out your style, get off the punches that he wanted, he was going to do it. And so that just shows in his style. If he's able to figure you out, he's going to get you out of there. If not, you're going to be in there all night because he's not going to do anything differently. And that's where him and Jack Johnson are very different. Jack Johnson could change the speed of the fight at an instant. At the drop of a pin, he could switch to his front foot, put his opponent on the rope, could start unloading with either hand. And his ring generalship is just top notch. We're talking with the greatest of all time. And like a lot of punchers, that's where Sonny Liston's downfall came from. That's really what Sonny Liston's downfall was. Good boxers. He was a huge two-handed puncher. He needed to be set to get those punches off. And guys that were able to make him move, chase them, overextend with his lead hand, were able to really expose his mental weaknesses too, and how frustrated he would get. I remember hearing a story of him throwing a young Joe Bugner out of his gym, canceling their session after a few rounds because Bugner wouldn't stop running. Obviously, if you've watched Joe Bugner, kind of a poor man's Muhammad Ali, no disrespect to him, just a little bit bigger, a little bit stiffer, and he was able to frustrate the hell out of Liston. And we obviously know the success that Eddie Machin and Muhammad Ali had using the entirety of the ring. And that's a dynamic we'll always see in boxing, in the biggest fights. That same exact principle applies to Crawford and Canelo, and I think that this fight could look a lot like that. Keys to victory. Jack Johnson needs to stay off the center line and avoid trading with Sonny Liston, period. He needs to wait for Sonny. He needs to wait for him to overreach, and he needs to counter him and get out, or he needs to tie him up, turn him on the ropes, and do that for the first multiple rounds. Both guys big and strong in the clinch. Both guys like to dig to the body, but with Johnson, it's all about using the entirety of the ring. I think that Johnson definitely has the ability to seriously frustrate Sonny with his movement, but I think that he definitely needs to show his power. He definitely needs to get the respect of Liston and can't give up too much ground. If you can't tell already, I think that Sonny is fighting an uphill battle, and I think that his best chance would be to hurt Johnson early, would be to blind him with the left, to drop a right on him, hit him with a stiff jab that jars him, get his hands free in the clinch. You know, maybe I'm wrong about the clinch. I think that Johnson was seriously strong physically, and he dealt with some big guys like McVeigh and Jeanette and some really strong fighters. He never struggled. Sonny wasn't a slouch in the clinch, and if he's able to get his hands free and he's able to repetitively land big shots on Johnson, land good digs to the body in the clinch, get free with both his hands, once or twice every round. I think that's what he would need to do to win. I think that he would need to show an ability to hurt Johnson consistently, or else I think that the boxing of Johnson is going to be far too much. I think that his ring generalship is far too superior. It'll be very hard for Sonny to chase him all night long. To repetitively hurt a guy over 15 rounds is tough. To deal with the boxing ability, conditioning, the adeptness of Johnson, gonna really hurt him. Officially, the prediction: Jack Johnson wears down Sonny Liston and earns himself a wide, unanimous decision, possibly a late round stoppage. Sonny went 10 rounds multiple times, but he only went the 12-round distance once, and Johnson was a guy that went 20 multiple times. He could pace a fight perfectly. He could fight everywhere. I think that he has all of the boxing ability and defensive tools to mitigate Sonny's straight punches, his offense, to tie him up and frustrate him, to stop him from getting off with both hands. And I think that he can land his counters effectively and get off when he needs to hurt Sonny, to frustrate him even more. He just needs to avoid trading with him, and he cannot let Sonny frame on him with that left, push him back, and get that right hand off. An important factor: Sonny was a determined fighter, and he was, despite how frustrated he would get, he was a guy that was going to keep punching till the end, and he would be on Johnson the whole time, trying, no doubt, and maybe that's where his best chance comes from. Despite my favoring Jack Johnson in this matchup, I do think that it would be important for him to show his power, to stun Sonny once or twice coming in, overreaching in those first couple rounds, to get off with a short punch or two inside the clinch himself. Maybe the speed would be enough to separate him all night, and he could cruise to a comfortable victory. Maybe Sonny puts him on the ropes and bowls him over in 3 or 4 rounds, and the biggest difference is temperament. If it comes down to mentality, Johnson definitely has that. But that's why it's a fantasy. We'll never know. We can't know. And the two most unwanted, underappreciated, buried heavyweight champions in the history of the sport, while 65 and about 115 years after the fact, respectively, we're here talking about them fighting each other. So have that. Let me know what you think, if you agree, if you disagree, and any fantasy fights that you guys have yourself, any that you've been thinking on that you want me to cover, let me know. I'm open-minded. I'm always thinking about this kind of shit. Let me know your thoughts. Appreciate any feedback or input. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening.